You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Monday. It is time to see what's cooking in the world of all things crypto. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as on the network upon which all of you folks have been binging in this penultimate trading week of the year. A couple of things to remind you of here at the top of the show. First off, if you like what you hear, make sure you're listening to the full network. And B, if you want to go above and beyond, head on over to the pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That'll get you 2 exclusive shows, as well as a bunch of other fun surprises over there. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we head on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. We're talking about the big dog, which is Bitcoin, looking a little bit smaller on this penultimate trading week here of the year, listeners. After the glorious new records north of 106, hitting 107 last week out there in Bitcoin land, coming back down the other way, listeners. 93,553 this week. Down from about almost exactly 106 where we were this time on the show last week. That's down almost 12,500 handles, 12,490 to be precise from where we were this time a week ago, listeners. So Bitcoin giving some back off the top. Now, to be fair, it has a lot to give back if it wanted to. It's had quite the run post-election, obviously. So obviously you're still looking good post-election day here if you're a Bitcoin holder, but giving some of that back out here this week. Looking at the vol right now, listeners, we were just talking about this on our TWIFO program last week, which is another reason why I say you folks should be checking out the full network if you're crypto curious, because crypto does pop up in a lot of other places, including on This Week in Futures Options, often on our Futures Rundown show, and popping up in other shows, including on the Option Block very recently as well, just today. We'll get to that in a little bit. But before we get there, listeners, we've been saying for a while, it's been kind of mystifying the lack of evolution and volatility out here in the big boy in the crypto world. And in fact, we've said multiple shows now, if you just ran the numbers show to show, you would never think, oh, we blew through a new record high or came off it aggressively, as is the case this week. You'd think we were just kind of treading water in the middle of maybe the dog days of summer. Now, it is a seasonally quiet period, so that probably has something to do with it. It is mid to late December, after all. But still, there's been a lot going on in between episodes of this show, and it's not really being reflected in the vol or the skew. Kicking off on the vol side, the 7-day vol. Last week, listeners, 54.5. This week, coming in not fully 3 points, 51 3/4, but coming in a wee bit. Going out 30 days to a more standardized vol metric, 57.3 on the show. Last week, 56 even right now. Again, just kind of mystifying. Our guest on the TWIFO was saying, if you had told him all the headlines out in Bitcoin, he would have assumed at least triple-digit vol in Bitcoin, if not more. And yeah, here we are hanging out. Mid-50s, have been doing so pretty much locked for the better part of the last few weeks. It is kind of a head-scratcher out here. Down to a 56 even right now. So again, that is less volatile than a lot of other assets you're going to see out there. And certainly not an indication if you looked at this saying, oh man, we hit a new record high last week, then immediately fell off the other side. Nothing like that. This looks to me like we've just been treading water and doing a heck of a lot of nothing. And yet, obviously, that is not the case, listeners. So a bit of a strange period out here to end the year in crypto. And 180-day vol, listeners, if 61.65 was too frothy, too juicy for you last week, allow me to present 61 1/4, down a whopping 0.4 since our last show. So yes, the somewhat head-scratching trend continues of not much evolution on the vol side. The case on the skew side as well. Let's find out, listeners. And kicking off the show last week, the 7-day, the weekly vol in Bitcoin, about a 1 point premium to the upside last week. This week coming in the other direction, a negative 0.5. Again, anything within a point in either direction, really kind of a rounding error. And that's kind of what this is. I would mostly term that flat. Going out 30 days, we do see a little bit of that bid that was there last week coming off, which again, you would expect. In fact, you'd be forgiven for looking to see it swing much more aggressively to the dark side since our last show. Listeners, I was positive 2 3/4 on the 30-day skew this time a week ago. Listeners, coming into the start of the show today, exactly 0.75. So it's come in exactly a point, which is kind of fascinating. I'm looking here to see the nadir. How low did we get? You would be reasonably forgiven for expecting the skew to be much more bearish than that. And you know what? It's kind of interesting because the weekly skew was reflecting a lot more downside sentiment than that. Even earlier this morning, in the wee hours of the morning, the skew got down to almost negative 4.5 on the weekly front. So that is more along the lines of what I was at least expecting coming in today, not this negative 0.5, which is mostly unched. So it has clawed its way back quite a bit. Now, bear in mind, this is about 2 a.m., so this is coming right off the heels of the most illiquid part of the session as well. But just interesting stuff out here on the skew front as well. Going out 180 days, listeners, positive 4 1/4 last week, actually positive 4.4 this week. So not really the huge skew swings we would expect. That was the case for last week as well when we were breaking through new highs. Even the weekly skew didn't really reflect that much evolution out here. So yeah, kind of a weird time. People keeping their powder dry even in the middle of these massive swings and massive new record levels in the underlying. Let's go out to the land of IBIT. Is that showing some action out here? The answer is yes. 53 even when we kicked off the show, down over 7 handles, about 7 1/3 handles from where it was this time last week, listeners. So IBIT lighting it up. In fact, IBIT, subject of our question of the week. We will get to that in a little bit, what you folks think about all things IBIT out there right now. Looking pretty hot again today, 327,000 contracts. The ADV is 336,000. That's up 25,000. Again, normally products this time of year don't see record ADVs. Obviously, IBIT a newer product, but still just wild paper out here in IBIT. You folks cannot get enough of it. I'm hearing a lot of people coming to me anecdotally, people who have been, let's say, outside the crypto realm, or maybe they washed their hands of crypto during one of the last recent crypto downturns, coming back saying, you know what, IBIT did it. It lured me back to the dark side. I'm back in, listeners. If volume and volatility are all that you need, you got it here, listeners. 30-day vol, a 60 even, exactly unched from where it was this time a week ago. In terms of action out there today, stuff's lightening it up. 19, almost 20,000 of the 30 calls expiring on January 3rd. Is that a bit of a roll? Let's see, 18,000 of the 30 calls expiring on December 27th this week as well. So 30 calls lighting it up, which again, I said we're at a 53 even, listener. So 23 handle in the money calls, not usually the first thing that you see. Paper blasting away at a bunch of those. That appears to be the case. Opening on the Jan, so we could have a bit of a roll. But if that's a roll, maybe, yeah, if they're overwriting, looks like they paid $23.10 for exactly mid-market for the 30s when the stock was $53.05. So a nickel over, listeners. And then for the calls expiring this week, and then $23.19 for the 30s. Again, almost exactly mid-market. Interesting. Opening definitely on the Jans. A weekly 30 strike. Interesting paper out here. That's about 37,000 contracts right there. Listen, we're seeing a lot of paper going. Beyond that, we have the Jan 60s, 6 O's, going up for 33 cents this morning, expiring on the 3rd. So 2 weeks out, listeners. That enough time to threaten a 60 handle? Well, we were threatening it north of it not too long ago on the show a week ago. So can we get back there? Are you willing to pay 33 cents for the privilege? Looks like somebody was earlier this morning, listeners. So a lot of action out here in IBIT, which again leads to our question of the week. We'll be back on IBIT in a little bit. Bitto, another one that's kind of been interesting. A lot of people have been watching it of late to see if Bitto goes the way of the dodo post IBIT. 22.80 when we kicked off the show, down $5.50. The ADV 111,000, still a lot, but down another 26,000 from where it was a week ago. So if that trend continues, probably doesn't bode well for Bitto in the long term. About 77,000 contracts on the tape right now. The vol, 59 is your 30-day vol out here. Down a whopping 1 point from where it was this time a week ago. Jan 30 still leading the dance out there. 101,000 of those bad boys, followed by 72,000 for the 35s. Those seem a little bit more of a distant memory than they were, let's say, even a week ago. Maybe you should have got out of Dodge on those while the getting was good. Speaking of getting out of Dodge, MSTU, this thing is rapidly going to zero. Greg, wherever you are, this is for you. You love this degenerate of a product. 10 3/4 right now, down another $6.50 just since last week. This thing's wild. 28,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV is 28,000, is the ADV. 28,000 contracts a day is your ADV here in MSTU. Today, 45,000 contracts on the tape. So lighting up the tape out here in MSTU. Let's see, what are the folks up to today, listeners? 14, almost 1,500 of the 10 puts expiring this week. Going up, followed by about 1,400 of the 12 calls expiring in January. So, interesting. 12 calls traded nearly $2, $1.90, listeners. 5 puts trading 20 cents for January. Given the way this thing is falling out of bed, that may not be the worst do out there. 670 puts trading 35 cents. Interesting. These are all about 200 vol levels. This product is wild. The top position out here right now, 15,000 of the June 38 half calls. That is a funky one indeed, and obviously a vestigial position, probably from the pre-split regime. Let's see, when was that opened? Like a lot of that was actually a week ago. 38 halves for $4.40, about 2,500 trading. Obviously, the OI is more than that, but wow. Interesting. So $4.40 for the 38 halves in June, MSTU, listeners. That is some juice. That is a 201 volatility. Would you pay that, listeners? Goodness. over 10% of the value of the stock for a 38.5 call. The stock at the time was 1538. Wow. This name is wild, listeners. And what else is wild out here in the crypto landscape? Is Mara still wild? Not as much, listeners, unless you count just falling out of bed as wild, in which case that would be the case. 19.25, down 5.25 since our last show. So they're coming for everything this week. The ADV, 478. Man, this thing is putting up numbers, listeners. That's down 20,000, but still just pretty wild by all regards. Let's look here. A lot of people look at Coinbase as another popular product for a lot of, let's say, non-crypto folks to trade some crypto options. That one only does 270,000 contracts a day. So Mara, almost 2x that. So Mara, beast. Today, about 200,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog today, about 9,500 of the 19 puts expiring this week, all that opening. And then 20 calls, 6,600 times, also opening this week. So interesting stuff. Those Jan 30s are still open, about 73,000 of those bad boys. I think in hindsight, they may look back and wish they maybe took those off, but we shall find out. We shall find out, listeners. Speaking of finding things out, let's find out what's cooking in the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we explore everything lighting it up outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now when we talk about our big market cap leaders. Spoiler alert, we are lower than we were this time a week ago. Last week, at the top of our list, we were 2.1 trillion. Not quite there this week, listeners. And it cost you last week 25.5, so about 25, almost 25.6 billion worth of market cap to break into the top 10. That is much lower this week. 21.5 billion worth of market cap, down a whopping 4 billion just in a week. That still gets you to Tron. Tron still holding, still clinging to the number 10 spot in market cap, listeners, kicking all contenders to the curb, but this time down quite a bit to 21.5 billion. So the draining crypto tide sucking everything down with it this week. Number 9, Cardano, 31 billion worth of market cap exactly. Number 8, USD Coin, 43 billion. Number 7, it's Doge, 46.25 billion. Number 6, it is Solana, 89.6 billion. That one coming in quite a bit. It was 104.6 billion a week ago. Number 5, BNB, 98.4 billion. Number 4, our old pal XRP, 124.5 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 139.6. You can see that it was a neck and neck race. They were literally tied just a couple of weeks ago. XRP now giving up the ghost back to number 4. Number 2, it's ETH, because of course it is 401 billion worth of market cap. This time a week ago was 486. And then the big dog, like we said, looking a little lighter this week, back below the 2T milestone, 1.84 trillion worth of market cap. For the big dog, looking a little smaller this week, it is Bitcoin. Let's get out to number 2. Number 1 in a lot of your hearts, it is ETH, listeners. 4,046 is where we were this time a week ago. Now, 3,348, down about almost exactly 700 handles from where we were this time a week ago. So ETH giving up some of the ghosts out there as well. A 7-day vol at about a 71 out here in ETH. Again, treading water. We were 70.5 this time a week ago. 30-day vol, same deal. 69.75 a week ago. 71 right now. So getting a little bit frothier, but nothing to really write home about. 180-day vol, 72.65. Last week, this week, 73.25. Is the Skew telling us any interesting stories now that ETH has kind of fallen out of bed a little bit this week? Which is exactly the opposite of what ETH needed after struggling to catch up with everything else. Giving a lot of it right back this week. A 7-day Skew, it was negative 1.5 last week, negative 0.75 this week. 30-day Skew, positive 2 last week, still positive, but 1.5 points this week. And 6-month Skew, 4.25 on the show. Last week, 6, even 6 this week. So getting a little bit firmer out there on the 6-month Skew, which is kind of fascinating. We'll run through a few others here in the altcoin universe, and we'll get to our question of the week for this week, listeners, which is very much near and dear to the audience of this program. Solana, like we said, giving up some of the ghosts this week. 218.84 last week, 189.07 this week, down nearly 30 handles, 29.77 from where it was this time a week ago. In terms of XRP, like we said, XRP also giving up some of the ghosts. 247 last week, 220 this week, down 27 cents. Obviously, everybody's favorite, Doge, 40.4 cents last week, 31.6 cents this week. And then Litecoin, 120.16 last week, 103.08, down over 17 handles from this time a week ago. Cardano, same deal, 110 a week ago, 89 cents this week, down 20, almost 21 cents. And then Polkadot, 892 last week, 702 this week. They're coming for Polkadot, down nearly $2. And everyone's favorite, Shiba Inu, a million zeros, 274 last week. This week, 218. So giving up the hubcap and maybe the rest of the wheel out there on the Shiba Lambos. But you know what? We are not done yet. It is time, listeners, for our crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crypto questions. And this week is a hot one aimed firmly at the listeners of this program. Listeners, we're asking you quite simply, it's one of our last questions of the week. Indeed, our penultimate question of the week for 2024. Wild to say that out loud. But we said, quite simply, what we talked about earlier, IBIT is wild. IBIT is crazy. Many options traders have been caught up in the IBIT frenzy. Listeners, are you one of them? Quite simply, have you been lured to the dark side of crypto options through IBIT? Gave you three choices. Yes, I am on the dark side. Or not yet, but maybe I'm kind of crypto curious. So indicating you haven't pulled the trigger, but you're thinking about getting into those turbulent and wild waters. Or, you know what, crypto just not for me right now. Or, of course, a lot of others, you folks are not reluctant to share your views out there, that is for sure. And right now, listeners, 83.3% of you saying, yes, you have been lured to the dark side. 16.7% saying, not for you right now. No fence sitters, no not yet, or crypto curious, which is kind of interesting. You folks are either all in or you're completely out, including a few of our other listeners. Noel Smith, who's been on our VolView show with us a few times, says IBIT paper is great. So he's a vol guy. He's been lured to the dark side of IBIT. I know our buddy, Mr. Dr. Vix, who's been on that show many times, infamously dumped all his ETH at $2,500 a few years ago and never looked back, washed his hands of crypto. He is back, has been lured back to the dark side, thanks to IBIT. And Vernon Griffin, our resident comedian here in our audience, says, hell no, I prefer my investments like my jokes, quote, solid and not likely to disappear overnight, with a laughing smiley face. He also says, besides, the only dark side I'm interested in involves epic space battles, lightsabers, and masked villains. Yes. I can get behind you there. So listeners, that just went live earlier this morning. That is indeed our question of the week. You can play along at Options to make your voice heard just like everybody else here. That's going to do it for our holiday episode of the Crypto Rundown. But don't worry, we're not done with you yet. We will be back next week for one final episode of the Crypto Rundown for this mad, wild year that was 2024. Break down all the action out here in the world of crypto and a lot more. We also will be back live on Friday for Volatility Views to look back on the wild week that was from a vol perspective. So if you need more live content in your life, don't worry, got you covered over there on the Friday show. And of course, you can catch it all on demand wherever your finer podcasts are purveyed. Just grab the full network and it'll all be coming for you. Hope you have a great holiday, no matter what you celebrate out there, listeners. We'll see you back here on Friday for Vol Views, and then back again on Monday, another episode, the final episode of the year of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.